planetary boogie. It's the planetary boogie.
Welcome, weary travelers, to the great big universe of XS.
Due to stop-and-go conditions, please remember to maintain your distance from the car ahead.
All right, you junior space rangers, listen up. Green Squadron will retrieve the power cells, while the rest of you concentrate on those robots.
WDW Radio, your information station.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the WDW Radio Show, your Walt Disney World information station. I am your host, Lou Mangello, and this is show number 442, and I'm here to help you have the best possible Disney vacation experience and bring you a little bit of Disney magic wherever you are with this podcast, videos, blog, live broadcasts on Facebook, events, books, audio tours, and more. You can find everything over at wdwradio.com. So as Walt Disney World evolves over time, we lose and miss so many things that have been lost along the way. So let's get a little bit nostalgic this week and talk about some things in Walt Disney World other than attractions that may be extinct, but we wish we could bring back. Some you may remember, and some you may have never even heard of before. And there's one near the end that I think sparks some interesting discussion and some armchair imagineering. Of course, I'm going to ask what you'd like to bring back as well. I'll then have the answer to our last Walt Disney World trivia question of the week and pose a new challenge for your chance to win a Hong Kong Disneyland prize package. Then I'll have more information about upcoming events and meets of the month in Walt Disney World. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this week's episode of the WDW Radio Show. I am an optimist. Shocker, I know, but I always have been. I always will be. And an optimist, not just in that I look on the positive side of things in everyday life, but an optimist about the future in my personal life and in my business, and yes, in terms of Disney as well. And for so many reasons, Disney has continued to earn my trust and my respect and my faith in what they are doing. And for that and a lot of other reasons, I'm an optimist about what is to come in the Disney parks as well. And you'll hear year after year after year on the show as we look to the year ahead that the things that excite me most about Disney are the things that we haven't heard about as yet. But I'm also a nostalgic, and I love and miss so many things in and about Walt Disney World that maybe remind me of my childhood or going with my parents, or even things that I've enjoyed as I've attempted to grow to be an adult. But I know that as things grow and change and evolve, we often lose some of those things along the way. And so this week, I want to share with you some of those things in Walt Disney World other than attractions that I wish we could bring back. And speaking of bringing back, I am bringing back to the show, and this virtual table that I invite you to be a part of is a man who loves the past as much as he dreams of the future. No, it's not H.G. Wells or Dr. Emmett Brown. He is, of course, Mr. Ryan P. Wilson of Main Street Gazette fame. Welcome back, brother.
And where we're going, we don't really need roads. So we're...
You know, a very wise man once said, and I quote, I love the nostalgic myself, and I hope that we never lose some of the things of the past. And that wise man, of course, was Walt Disney. And I think it's neat that we sort of go down this road. Look, we've talked, obviously, ad nauseum about extinct attractions before, right? We've done extinct restaurants of Walt Disney World back on show 370. We've done extinct opening day attractions that we wish were still at Walt Disney World back on show 280. But even in our conversation, as we're, just talking among friends, we talk about some of those things that we lament and we miss, from Walt Disney World's days gone by in the parks and around the resort.
We do, and it's that very similar to Walt Disney's mentality of one foot in the past and one foot in the future, and standing in today, kind of looking at what do you have, what do you miss, what will you carry with you, and how will that inform kind of where you go tomorrow. And it is, even in all these shows, we talk about the past, we talk about things that have happened, we talk about, well, what will we do going forward, what will we do in the future. So we always had those conversations of where we are and how it affects time and place, and but it's always fun looking back.
Yeah, and I think you're, excuse me, very much like me and a lot of people who might be listening who, sometimes when seemingly little things go away, we get very upset, right? Certainly when attractions close, especially now with the internet and Twitter, people can collectively lose their minds publicly. But there's a lot of times that something small might go away, and I'm sure we'll hit on some of those things that really kind of mean a lot to us, either because we enjoy it every time we go, or we, like me, remember experiencing or enjoying, in my case, probably tasting some of those things in the past.
Definitely. And there are those pieces that we go back to time and again to see, to stand where we made a memory or something that has meaning to us. And it may not have meaning to anyone else as much as it does to us, but we go back and we see it again. And then when we lose that piece, it's now we are the sole proprietors kind of its memory and of keeping it going forward. So I think you're right. I think it is that chance to take, a step back and give a nod to them and then think about what's coming up ahead.
Yeah, and that's, to your point, one of the things that's wonderful about now when things go away, we have a digital legacy, right? There's photos and there's podcasts and there's videos, and Disney themselves has their own archives that they have over the last few years begun to share with us. But some of the things I think on our lists, I know that you and I, again, we love looking back. Sometimes it's hard to find photos of them, certainly videos of some of these things, especially from the early 70s. And, we're sort of piecemealing our memories together, cobbled from, just what we remember, or maybe talking to our parents, or maybe an old, Super 8 movie that's in our mom's basement somewhere.
Yeah, and it's great that, at some point somebody's going to reference us when we are long gone because we have this digital record that we've created for ourselves. But prior to that, it is a lot of going, yes, I knew somebody who was here, there, and they have this photo, or we searched through eBay for old photos around a typical subject, and we're trying to cobble together the history as best we can on our own.
Yeah, and it's interesting, that you say that about now us sort of leaving a legacy for the people that will follow us. And I know some of these things too, even on my list, are things that you say, well, I remember seeing this, man. I remember experiencing this. And other people say, you're crazy, Lou. Such a thing never really existed. And that's why sometimes trying to find, physical evidence of it. And I'll talk about one of those things as I get to the end of my list. One of the things I regret never getting at some point and have yet to ever see. But maybe we should sort of just go land by land. And I know it's going to be difficult for us not to throw an attraction in here or there, because when we think about extinct Walt Disney World, usually that's what comes up. Are those the rides we could bring back? But we're really going to talk about everything but the attractions to a certain degree, and we can define attraction however it may be. So it could be a shop, a restaurant, a food item, a piece of merchandise, a souvenir, if it's a show or parade, wherever it may be. So I want you to go first, because I think I'm really curious, and I understand that there's no rank and order in the list.
No, it was completely like when I started putting together a list, it was completely like, what do I talk about all the time that gets on my wife's nerves that I can throw on this list? I think for me, one of the things when I was a kid, and when I was a kid, they were the film, and it kind of encompasses the whole of the Magic Kingdom, but they were the film stands that were the old ticket booths, and they were just for one, film nowadays, no one needs it, so you had the places at the corner of Fantasyland. You had the place, you had the Crow's Nest at Adventureland. They were always there. They were just these little places you could get information, you could get film, but that was so much a hallmark of delineating where you were in a park that it was a cornerstone for each land that you could go visit. And I remember those being just those hallmarks that kind of tied the whole thing together.
Yeah, and it's funny because I actually had the ticket books themselves.
There you go, see?
Right, I had that on my list, near the very end, because I'm like, wow, I do miss them for sentimental reasons. But then I'm like, wow, I wonder how ticket books, we're talking about things that we wish we could actually bring back. So while there's certain things I miss, I don't know that I would necessarily bring them back. And I'm wondering, wow, would I bring back ticket books? There's a novelty. There's a collectability. There's a lot of potential advantages to having ticket books and disadvantages. Now you swipe your Magic Band and you go on your app. But there was not something neat about having those A through E ticket books. And like you said, dude, I remember the kiosk in front of or across from 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, which is across very close to where, sort of Pooh's tree currently sits. But going, to my dad and going, come on, can we just buy one more e-ticket ride just to go and do the subs one more time?
Yeah, and I can remember going over there and besides ticket, I could get the slides. And that's where you got the slides for everyone who, now we didn't need them, but you could get them, you could take them home. And those were those were the things you could project and tell everyone about your trip and about these attractions because you were reserving your film for really great family portraits. And it was just one of those places you could go and you could grab that. And that's one of the ones that I really remember. And the other one was in Tomorrowland now, where it's right as you come in, right before you get to the overarch, the People Mover, but I can remember going up there and saying, "Oh, I need 110 film for my camera," and getting that, and yeah,
dude, I almost put the GAF Camera Center on my list.
But you're right. Looking at it now, what would it be? We would be putting credits on our Magic Band. Would there even be a ticket booklet to collect? We get to that point where you start thinking, is this for nostalgia purposes only, or is there an actual reason that we should have it?
Yeah, and that's why I couldn't put the
ticket.
Yeah, and I couldn't put the GAF Camera Center on there, right? Do I remember it? Do I think it's fun to talk about? Kids, you used to have to walk in there and buy film and these little cubes that had flash bulbs on them, and you used it 4 times and then threw it away and then sent your film in, and 2 weeks later you got it back to see just how good, or in my case, awful,
how blurry your photos
right, how overexposed and blurry those photos were. It was like a really bad Instagram filter without trying to have a bad Instagram filter.
Yeah, you got to double tap that and then slide it a little bit to fix it.
So for me, when I was thinking about Magic Kingdom, I tried to go mentally land by land and walking through, and I stopped very quickly on Main Street USA, and maybe I'll sort of combine these two because they were so, for me, they were so closely tied together, geographically, physically, they were very tied together. But the House of Magic and the Penny Arcade, I miss them for many reasons, many personal reasons. I've told the story about going with my dad, but I miss them for nostalgia. And I think that they would bring something back to Main Street USA. They would bring about the charming little shop that it doesn't really have anymore, right? Think about what Main Street USA used to look like, and all the different stores, and the Wonderland of Wax, and the card shop, and the kids' clothing section, and the women's clothing store. Having that simple pleasure of the inexpensive magic trick that the magician could show your kid, and then you can take home and practice with your kid, or going into the Penny Arcade and looking at those old mutoscopes, right? And the old remember the Pian Orchestra from the turn of the century. That is what Main Street USA is very much all about. So I think those are that they're novel and they're unique, and I think it's something that I would actually like to see back. As much as I love the shopping on Main Street, I would love to see those back on Main Street USA.
No, and I had both of those as well, but I think you hit it on the head with when you're talking about unique and charming, and that's what they were. And I can remember going into the House of Magic, and this is where my love of magic came from. And we have a very good friend who's an excellent magician, and I never got to that level. But at some point in my childhood, I thought for sure I could be a magician because I had mastered like 3 tricks off of the $2 shelf in the store in there, but I was convinced I could do it, and that was something that my parents never told me that I couldn't do it, and so I think that juxtaposition of who I was as a child, how much I loved the magic as a child. Even now I go and visit the facade at Disney Hollywood Studios on Streets of America just to pay my respects to the House of Magic, and yeah, I would absolutely love to have that back. And I think it does have a place still when you have the hot dog stand on the corner and you have the candy shop on the corner. Give us something tangible that you can take away that you're not just going to eat and be done with, or the same shop and the same souvenirs that you have everywhere else. That uniqueness back to the turn of the century Main Street.
I mean, look, don't minimize the importance of eating something as well.
I have plenty of food. I have plenty of food on this list.
But look, the magic shop still exists at Disneyland, and
Right.
it's small, and it is all those things, right? It's quaint and it's charming, and it's a throwback, I think, to the past. Is it probably the greatest revenue generator? Absolutely not. Is it something that I think kids in 2016 and beyond will still think about and remember as a childhood memory of going with their parents? Absolutely so.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things when we lost it in Walt Disney World, there wasn't this outcry because there wasn't the technology we have nowadays. I think if Disneyland were to lose it today, the internet would be on fire.
No. Twitter? Come on, man.
No.
Anything else in Magic Kingdom specifically?
Oh, there was a couple of things. For me, the one food item that if I could bring back a food item in Magic Kingdom was Aunt Polly's. The cold fried chicken on Tom Sawyer's Island, in a heartbeat, I would love to go back and do that again.
Wow. I thought I was sure that handwiches were on your list.
They're on my list someplace else.
All right, sorry, I completely
They're on the list. Don't worry, the handwiches did not lose the list. But in the Magic Kingdom, if there's one food item, it's that. I don't know what it was. I loved cold fried chicken as a kid, and to be able to go over there and sit almost like a picnic on the dock, watch the boats go by, listen to the wolves of the Haunted Mansion, watch the trains. That was a happy place for me, and I would love to go back and do it again.
It's interesting, as we're recording this in 2016, Aunt Polly's is opening seasonally, not serving the same types of items. They serve ice cream sandwiches and some of the little grab-and-go things. But it's really interesting to see how many people love the fact that it is back or coming back or its doors are open again. And I think it's almost to a certain degree less about the specific food items than it is the unique vistas that you get and the unique dining experience that you have there of grabbing something, taking the raft to the island, walking over there, and then sitting on that open-air gazebo and watching the riverboat go by. And like you said, the Haunted Mansion off in the distance, and sometimes, if you time it right, a parade or whatever. I think that's why, again, that scent. And interesting, we're talking about these. I'm a big proponent of the simple pleasures in Walt Disney World. This, and I think Aunt Polly's, very much was and is and hopefully will continue to be one of those simple pleasures that we enjoy.
I hope so, yeah. And as long as it's been there, I keep having that hope, okay, we're going to come back. It's going to be a natural place, even if it is only during like spring break, Christmas, and the high summer times. But as long as people are still getting some kind of experience from Aunt Polly's, that makes me completely happy.
So as I was going through my list, man, I have a couple more things. Obviously, when I think of nostalgia, my mind instantly turns to Magic Kingdom. But the next thing that popped up, just in terms of how they, hit my mind in terms of when I was making my list, was shockingly enough not a food item, but a person, a character, as it were, and it's Peg Leg Pete. And if you remember, if you're young enough to remember, over the archway at the entrance to Pirates of the Caribbean, there used to be a Barker bird there it was an animatronic bird, an animatronic parrot that would sort of beckon people to come into the fort. And he had this great little spiel, and he sang part of the song, and it was very sort of kitschy and campy and punny. He was singing Yo-ho, yo-ho, a parrot's life for me. And he would whistle, and he would talk about, I remember, salty old pirates, right? And he would sort of quote lines from the song.
Heave to, mateys. You come seeking adventure and salty old pirates, eh? Salty old pirates, this be the place. Chart a course through the arches, mateys. It be a short march through the old fortress. Past the dungeons to pirates.
I could hear it in my mind and remember it so vividly as a kid, not just watching him and again trying to use my little camera to get a picture of him, but the shaved belly and the anchor tattoo on his chest.
I was gonna say for me it was that tattoo. Like that was what drew me in. Like I was like, who shaved the poor bird who has these bright, gorgeous green feathers and put an anchor tattoo right on his belly? And that was always what drew me in. Like I was like, okay, this may be pirates, but this is gonna be fun.
Yeah, and he had a peg leg. I mean, literally had a peg leg. And if you're saying, "Hey, I've seen that bird. I recognize that bird," he was taken out in 2006 as part of the refurbishment, and he was brought over to the World of Disney store in downtown Disney. I haven't been in a while. I'm not sure if he is still there or not, but I very much miss him in Adventureland. When I think back, to going as a kid, he was one of the things that instantly came to top of mind, and I could hear that spiel, that narration about this being the place, chart a course through the arches, matey. I could probably almost do it, simply from memory, and I miss that little. The little Barker bird there. And there used to be other Barker. Maybe we'll do a show about our top 10 Barker bird type things, right?
Birds.
Hoot Gibson and the Tiki Birds, right? They all had a little Barker bird outside.
Yeah, they did to bring the people in, and I remember that so vividly, and it was one of those things that made Adventureland. Like that's what you would go into Adventureland, and that would be the sound you would hear is these Barker birds above almost all the other sounds. You could hear them calling to you to come in. And for an animatronics, they are so lifelike, and you're like, yes, okay, I'm coming to see this pirate bird who's going to tell me a tale.
Peg-legged Pete, you are very much missed in Adventureland. So,
yes.
Anything else for you in Magic Kingdom?
Oh, let's see. There's the little things that the simple things that you miss. Like I miss, the Friar's Nook has been there forever, but I miss the old name of Gurgi's Munchies and Crunchies, or the Adventureland Veranda is back now in a different light, but it's that I missed for so long. But I think those are kind of the big pieces, and like the other pieces are just little pieces that I'm grabbing at, going, oh, and I remember this, and I remember this, but.
Yeah, I think the only other thing that I would put in there, I wanted to say Tiana Showboat Jubilee, but we'll consider it an attraction. But it really was another shop, or shops plural. And as much as I love Ye Old Christmas Shop, I would love to bring back the
trio. This would be on here somewhere.
Yeah, man, I couldn't help it. There is something about Johnny Tremaine's Silversmith Shop, Madame Lafayette's Perfumerie, and the Old World Antique Shop that just had, again, I don't know what the revenue stream might have been versus the Old Christmas Shop. I don't care, right? Because I remember walking into, and my parents had an antique business for decades, for years. I traveled the country going to antique shops. But the Old World Antique Shop had that same smell. It smelled like your grandmother's attic. It smelled like an old antique shop. And I love the fact that every time you went in there were unique and different items, whether it was a small piece of jewelry or silver to a large chest of drawers or dining room set. And I remember the lace on the windows. I don't know why that sticks with me, but I remember my parents going in there and my mom and dad talking to them about, and some stuff was reproductions. A lot of it was were actual, one of a kind and originals. And I've said over and over again that the perfume, the custom perfume bottle from the perfumery is still one of my holy grails of collectibles.
I'll tell you this: I keep every eye I have peeled, and like I have searches out there for it. Like one of these days, somebody's gonna find one for you because it exists. We all know it exists,
right?
Somebody will find it.
And I think that's why I'm saying, because I will tell you that going back to the House of Magic, and I'm going to try and not get choked up when I tell the story again. I talked about the little 2-inch King Tut mummy magnet thing that if you put the magnet in the right way, you could make this King Tut levitate out of the coffin. Well, somebody found one in an original box and sent it to me, and
that's cool.
It's on the shelves behind my desk, and dude, I cried when I saw it.
I bet.
Not just because of the gesture, but because of what it reminded me of. So, yeah. Anyway,
that's amazing, and Movie Square had so many facets. You had Ichabod's, which had all the kind of the gag Haunted Mansion pieces, where you could have like the ghost dog, leash that you could walk the dog, and You had the perfumery. It goes back to those unique offerings that you could get. The puzzle boxes.
Oh, dude, I have the puzzle box.
I have a puzzle box. And how great would it be
puzzle
to have a puzzle box around now? Kids would still eat that up.
Oh, yeah. My kids try and get their grubby little hands on it all the time, but I refuse to let them touch it.
Mine's on a low shelf because my wife doesn't care about it, and I don't have any grubby hands on it yet. So.
All right, so I want to move over to Epcot, and I'm really, really curious to hear, again, save attractions, right? We've talked about the attractions and one that we would bring back, but what other than attractions would you love not just to visit again, but would actually want to bring back, as it were, the day that it opened or the day that it closed?
Yeah, this is one of those things where I start going, okay, is it an attraction? Is it, how do I get imagination back in the way I remember Journey to Imagination? And so for me, it's very much that Peg Leg Pete. It's the Dreamfinder. I would in the walk around character, the character of he brought such life to Epcot Center and Epcot that he's been in a comic book in the past. They've done 2 iterations of the comic book in the past couple of years, and he very clearly has a deep following. He very clearly has a lot of people who love him, and I would just love to see him back in Epcot.
Yeah, and a long, long time ago, somebody had said, Dreamfinder is dead, which is a way that I had never heard a character referred to. We obviously see that, like you said, that Dreamfinder is not dead, and he is still certainly very much loved and missed. And I wonder what the potential of Dreamfinder could be, and whether or not Dreamfinder might someday make a return. But when I went to Epcot, I went to 2 places, and I don't know, maybe this doesn't count by your definition of attractions, but the first thing I thought of was the Tapestry of Nations / Tapestry of Dreams parade in World Showcase.
I think we're good. I think we're fair there.
All right, the judges give me an okay. Survey says I don't get an X. It was something that was created for the Millennium Celebration. Again, a Millennium, a year-long celebration at Walt Disney World lasts, anywhere from 14 to 18 months. But it was, it was years in the making, and I loved first of all, I loved the music that they had for it. But I remember being on the promenade and seeing this Sage of Time and the Dream Seekers and these giant butterfly, these very tall, very free-flowing butterfly nets and the different floats and the clock that was in there. And I love that parade, and I miss the fact, and maybe I wanted to make sure I had this on the list because I miss and would love to bring back a parade in World Showcase.
I am right there with you, and I actually teetered on this one because I had that in there as well. But for me, it was Kaleidoscope, where you had the dragon boats and the hang gliders and all the color that was happening over the lagoon, and you could see it from everywhere at once, and it was just incredible, like the use of colors and how bright and vivid, and the daytime fireworks in Epcot, and it just brought a sense of life to the park. So for me, that was, I think it's that same mentality of I'd love to see something back in World Showcase, bringing entertainment back, bringing, some life back in between all the shops and restaurants and attractions back there.
And the other thing that I thought of instantly is, and I think now more than ever, because I think what replaced it has been for a long time trying to define itself and what it is. Mm-hmm. And I dig the idea and the intent and the mission of Interventions, but man, bring back Communicore tomorrow and I'm set. Yeah. And if you go back to show number 20, like we're talking 2007, we did a detailed DSI of what Communicore was, because it really was meant to be sort of the Main Street USA, as it were, of Epcot. It was supposed to be the community core. That's what it stood for. And as a kid who still am, a complete and utter nerd at heart, both sides had truly interactive, technology-based exhibits in it. And whether it was the Epcot Outreach Center or the Computer Center or the Computer Coaster or the Astuder Computer Review. It was all future technology that wasn't, it was more based in reality than it was in fantasy. These are things that we were going to see in the future. And now in 2016, we've seen a lot of the things that they talked about certainly come and obviously be, exceeded.
Absolutely. You missed my favorite part. For me, it was Expo Robotics. These robotic arms that were spinning tops on the edge of samurai swords, across wires. I was sitting here, I was like, I couldn't even understand the science that would go into making that work. But I would run in there at a sprint to see these robots do their thing, because I just couldn't understand how it would happen. And I wanted to know how it worked.
And I remember the Astuder Computer Review, not just because of Ken Jennings and his awesome white suit, but I.O. I remember, after the sort of backstage magic and I.O., but they had, you really sort of got a chance to look down through the glass into what was this giant computer core, right? The heart and the brains of what appeared to be Epcot with these giant mainframe computers, and in an era of when personal computing was really just starting to take off. And as a kid who spent many lonely weekends in front of a computer as a kid, I was fascinated by that, and I wanted to learn more. And I remember trying to look at the screens and see what was on there, and then you'd go to another section and be able to use the video phone to make dining reservations. Like, that was just, it was Epcot. That Communicore embodied what Epcot was supposed to be, which is this hands-on, prototype community of tomorrow.
Absolutely, and you're right. The world key that were everywhere throughout Epcot Center, that came back into that hub, and you could go watch videos about attractions. You could make dining reservations where you were quite literally face to face with the person who, which at the time we thought that was the coolest thing ever, and now we can do it on our phones in our hands. But at the time, we didn't know we were going to have that, and it embodied everything from every pavilion in Future World, and gave us this sense of, the future for all of us is going to be amazing.
And I think for me, part of the reason why I liked Backstage Magic and the Astudio Computer Review was, do you remember how they used that sort of Pepper's Ghost effect to show how audio animatronics figures were being programmed? That's when that was sort of for me, as somebody who was fascinated with how this place worked, right? That's why I'm sitting here today, is because as a kid, as much as I loved what I saw on stage, I was so curious about how did they make this city run 24/7? What was the engineering and the mechanics behind this incredible place? And that was the first sort of peek behind the curtain in my child's eyes of, this is what DAX, this is what the digital animation control system, this is what it looks like. This is how it works. This is how we make these animatronic figures come to life. And I remember being the wide-eyed kid, probably with my face pressed up against the glass, just fascinated in that Disney was giving us a little peek behind the curtain to see how it all worked.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And for me, between the computer review and these robots, and I was going home with my many lonely weekends, like you said, with my Technique Legos, and I was building robots, and I was building these things and saying, how does this work? And my parents were convinced, like, we're set. We have an engineer for our son. He's going to take care of this. But it was that it's where we are today. It's that we got that one peek behind the curtain. Pay no attention. No, we paid attention. And we wanted to see more, and we kept digging, and it has led, I think, both of us to where we are today.
And the one thing also that I wish that I could bring back that I never got to see, and I remember begging and asking and trying everything I possibly could for as long as it was there, was, I don't know if you ever, well, you are an educator, right? So maybe you did, but there was where the Art of Disney is now, as you pass Spaceship Earth on the right-hand side. When you enter the Art of Disney store, you'll see that right on the left-hand side, there's a staircase that's roped off that goes to a second level. And at one point, that was the Epcot Outreach Center, which was a place where teachers and educators could go and have access to reference. Oh God, I'm so excited! They had access to reference materials and documents and sheets and handouts and giveaways, all about what made Walt Disney World tick. And it was not open to guests. And I remember, trying desperately any way I could to get up there and just see what was there. Unfortunately, I never got to, and I don't know anybody who ever has. Or I have one somewhere in my boxes of archives in the garage. I do have one of the handouts from the Epcot Outreach Center, but I would love to bring it back, and I would love teachers to have access to those resources too.
Yeah, and I've made that plea a couple of times because by the time I got into education, it had already kind of shuttered, and I couldn't, and there was really nothing left there. And I was like, I will hold the archives for that if you need me to. Like, I don't care that it's outdated material. I don't care if I need the old reel-to-reel, projector film. But it was one of those areas I loved, and I love the idea that there were all these resources for teachers and educators of all sorts to just take home with them, to take back to their classrooms. And I can remember even being a child, because I grew up in Central Florida, and I somehow moved away for some reason. But I can remember going on field trips, and our teachers would go in and they would get materials, and that was how we would spend our day. Is we would be touring Epcot with these information that they had gathered and do these pieces as we went. So it was almost, it wasn't really necessarily a day, playing on the attractions. It was a day spent educating yourself about what was going on in Epcot.
Yeah. That's I would love to. I would love to see actually what is there now. What does that second floor actually look like? But
it's where they keep all of Will Gay's other paintings.
All right, so if you move over to, in my notes I just wrote MGM. I couldn't even call it Disney's Hollywood Studios. But if you move over to the studios, and I think I'm curious to see if this gets more difficult as we move from park to park and the parks get more newer and not have as long of a legacy and history behind them. But what was the first thing that you thought of when you thought of the studios?
Something I never got to do with it because I hit the age just wrong, but it was the catwalk bar.
Curse you, Ryan Wilson. That's why I love you so much.
I would love to just to get, and I know now that you can't, there's really not a whole lot to see there except for the children, the toddlers playing around with their doing their Mickey Mouse Kamuska. But I would love to have a place like that now, to go up to second level, to oversee whether it's film sets or props or whatever they would want to fill the space with, but have that kind of experience again of this is a place where where we can go. It's kind of tucked away. You had to kind of know about it before you could get there. But yeah, I would any day.
Yeah, and I think we've talked about the catwalk bar on one of our studios episodes. Maybe somewhere. I think when we did like a show about the anniversary of the studios, we talked about the catwalk bar, which was over we can might as well throw this into the Soundstage restaurant, which was downstairs again, where the sort of Playhouse Disney and Bear in the Big Blue House was. It was a themed restaurant that would change the theme every so often based on stuff. It was the Bette Midler movie, and then it was Aladdin, and then it was Pocahontas, I think. But upstairs, there on the catwalk, on this very large catwalk, was a bar that you could actually look over the railing down onto the restaurant. And the thing that I remember about this was it had a very it almost had a feel like someplace that you really would find on sort of a backlot, right? The ceilings were exposed. It was a mishmash of different types of very basic types of furniture, right? Like metal chairs that you'd find just sort of at maybe an employee cafeteria. And I remember like dozens of different lamps and chandeliers, as if they sort of took whatever they could and just threw it up there and hung up there. And it's where, the actors or the crew would sort of go and be able to look down. And if you go to the Hollywood Brown Derby and go to the restrooms, you'll see that there's an elevator and once again, a roped off set of stairs there. Take neither of them. That is where and how you would access the catwalk bar, which, like you said, from what I understand, is still there. Maybe I've heard it's being used for storage. I've heard a lot of different uses for it, but it is unfortunately no longer accessible.
Yeah, and with what is taking place and what the Soundstage restaurant was now, you wouldn't really want Wow, you wouldn't want parents up there watching the kids like, "Yep, that's mine down over there. We're fine." It's the idea of the place of this is where the stars would go and hang out in between takes, and very much almost a Backlot Express kind of a feel to it, where all the pieces are just jumbled and put together, and it had a little neon sign that that just in almost in cursive writing said catwalk bar, and it just had that kind of like that almost forgotten kind of thing, a storage space to it. But I think a place like that would do great still in the studios.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see. Obviously, the studios is undergoing massive change. I mean, really for the first time, changing its entire definition. And I think that is the other thing to a certain degree. And look, nobody's more excited for the Star Wars experience and Toy Story Land, and I love what they've done on Pixar Place. However, if there's something I could bring back, something extinct that I could bring back to the studios, it would be the studios, right? Yeah. I mentioned before about getting that sense of peeking behind the curtain at Epcot when I looked down and saw the DAC system. Well, that's what the studios were. When you went to the studios, Ryan, I know we've talked about this before, but because they were filming there, right? Because there was a chance you'd see a celebrity there, because you could walk through certain attractions and see artists working on, film cells, or you could see costumers working on, outfits, or you could see them working on sets and props. You really got a sense that this was a real working studio, because that's exactly what it was. And unfortunately, they sort of had to, for out of reasons of necessity, get away from the studios being a studio. Yeah,
you lost that sense of liveliness where you didn't know who was going to be coming to do their handprints that day, what celebrity. You didn't know what film they were going to be working on that you could see. It was one giant peek behind the curtain. And for reasons of necessity and for reasons of space, that it's gone in a different direction. And I'm really excited to see what it says, but it does seem to have lost a sense of that sense of life that it had. So I'm hopeful to see what the next incarnation is of that life that it's going to have when all this is said and done with the new expansion.
And look, I get it. I also understand that guests' interests and what we as guests are looking for change, right? So when the studios opened, so many of the attractions were based in that, right? Monster Sound Show, ABC Sound Studio. A lot of those shows were making you feel as though you were either watching a show in production or you were able to be part of a show in production. Maybe now with what is accessible on TV and reality shows and the internet, maybe we don't need that as much, right? Because we are, we as consumers are now becoming content creators. We don't need a break on TV anymore if we want to pop up our own YouTube channel or go live on Facebook, whatever it may be. So maybe the guest satisfiers, what the guest interests were, necessitated the change in the theming and the mission and the story of the studios to give guests much more interactive type experiences that were not based on the creation of movies and TV shows.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think now you can look at back then there weren't Blu-rays, there weren't DVDs. You didn't have the bonus features telling you how the sound was created for this or how they did the filming of that. And now with it, as we do create our own content, it is moving more towards, well, how do we immerse them in a story that they haven't been in before or that they don't know how to, let's take them to the Star Wars Cantina and have patrons walking around that you wouldn't be able to create on your own. So it is that evolution of what the studio is and will be. So I am very, very excited to see what happens next.
I am as well. That being said, it's a little thing, again, because I'm not normally a parade guy. There are very few parades, other than maybe like Paint the Night in Disneyland, which really just hit home with me. And that parade is spectacular. And obviously, for nostalgic reasons, the electrical parade in Magic Kingdom. But one thing that studios had that I loved were the different themed parades, right? They had parades to celebrate the releases of a lot of different films: Aladdin, Hercules, Mulan, Toy Story. There was a home improvement parade, like a Father's Day home improvement parade, but they were all very different. They tied in the music, so if it was a couple of years in between your visits, maybe you didn't know what kind of parade that you got, and you got a new new floats and new music. So I did miss the studios being able to rotate their parades relatively frequently.
Yeah, and they did. They kept it was truly one of the fresher parades that you could find would be what is happening at the studios, because it was always tied to what was the feature they were promoting, because they were the studio, they were promoting what was next, they were promoting what was out now, and so they kept it going nonstop. And even to just recently we had Frozen parade going through, so they still keep that up, but they've gone away from the big grand parades to the smaller things now. But definitely something that's missed in that park.
Was there anything else for you over at the studios that you?
Yes, I had one. I had one more, and I debated this because it was kind of an attraction. It was kind of a shop, but I missed the Acme Studios where they had the gag boxes with the sound. You had the dip mobile for photo ops. There was this life that it brought to it, and with it more Roger Rabbit, more Jessica Rabbit. All these pieces that were so big when that park opened. I miss those pieces, and I miss that, like just the little pieces like that, like the boxes where you would open it and it'd be a sound effect or it'd be a gust of air because it was a tornado in a box, and those visceral pieces that you could get from it. So the Acme Studios I miss.
You just reminded me of, do you remember the post? So this is really funny. So you remember Sounds Dangerous, right, with Drew Carey? And then the post show allowed you to go and sort of be a Foley artist, but you'd go into some of the rooms and put the headphones on because you could hear binaural audio in these headphones. And it was like, oh, this is amazing. It's like it's swirling all around me. And now they
would dim the lights. You'd be in a booth, they'd dim the lights, and it sounded like somebody was walking through in front of you. You're like, no, somebody's in here. I'm sorry. Please don't. Yeah.
I mean, but that's what the entire Sounds Dangerous was based on, right? It was just, the audio effects that now we just take for granted because they're coming out of our, our mobile devices. So.
Right. Whatever soundboard we have on our phone today.
Yeah. So what about Animal Kingdom? Was there anything at Animal Kingdom? Again, the park opened in 1998, so relatively speaking, it hasn't been around very long, and there hasn't been a lot that has come and gone, save for a few things here and there.
Yeah, and most of them are attractions, really. When it comes to looking at other pieces that are missing, I couldn't come up with a whole lot. The only thing that I came up with, and it's one of those things just because I didn't get to see it, was, and truly you couldn't see it without the attraction, but I remember seeing the cave where the dragon lived, where you were supposed to, when you went around the bend on the Discovery River boats, and there was also down by Dino Land there was an Aladar animatronic down by the river, and I remember I've been able to go back and find pieces of that, but having never seen them or don't remember seeing them myself, I'd love to be able to go back and see those pieces in life again. Yeah,
I mean the thing that really struck me instantly, and I have to take it off my list, one, because it's an attraction, and two, because it is coming back, I think, in a much bigger and grander scale, were really the old Discovery riverboats and the Radio Disney River Cruise, and an attraction that never really figured out. It's either it didn't know what it wanted to be or guests didn't know what it was. And I know we talked about this a long, long time ago on the show as well. But the fact that now, and this is what excites, one of the things that excites me about what is happening over at Disney's Animal Kingdom, is not just this world of Pandora and not just the fact that it is going to be what I believe is the park to visit at night, but they are finally going to take advantage of this beautiful river that they have that circles this park, and some of the amazing vistas that you can have, not just on the boat, but on the shores as well. And I think you referenced for a while there used to be the remember there was actually like some
it was smoke coming out of
the nights that were sort of burnt. They weren't there very long either. They were like Big Red. They didn't stay around.
Right, it's like, we're not doing that anymore.
Yeah, maybe the burnt nights should not actually be their Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru on the shores of the river should not have been there. But the idea of being able to get back onto that river again really, really excites me. So it would have been on my list, but Disney is already making it happen.
Yeah. So and that's one of those pieces we look at that that an attraction. But I think we both love all the different forms of transportation that's throughout Walt Disney World. So finding a way to bring that back is huge.
So what about beyond the parks? I really tried to think beyond the parks themselves. So whether it's shopping, dining, entertainment districts, resorts, was there anything outside there that you would like to bring back?
Oh, that's a show and that's a list of itself. But the couple I know you have on here, so I'm going to leave. But I think if I'm looking at, let's look at Downtown Disney, which is, or the marketplace as it was, and all those things. For me, that used to be a place where you would go and there was a bakery and there was the butcher and there were, all these little grocery shops and a flower shop when it was back, when it was the Buena Vista marketplace. That sense of you could go and for your vacation, buy flowers, buy your necessities, buy your groceries, and take them home. That it's almost back to that charming and quaint thing that we had on Main Street, that you could go and do that and take it to where you were staying and set yourself up for your vacation. That feel to Downtown Disney of it was your shopping district for the pieces, the necessities you needed is something I miss.
So I'm totally with you, and I'm going to separate sort of the marketplace versus some of the other sections of Downtown Disney and Disney Springs, because I'm not sure if I want to bring them back. But that actually ties in to something else, because all those things that you talked about, right? The butcher shop, the grocery store, the local places that you would go as if this were your community, ties directly into what was once planned. And I would love again, the logistics aside of actually figuring out how to do it, but the idea of this residential community coming to the downtown Disney area, because that was a thing, right? Back in mid 73, there were plans to have this area called Lake Buena Vista that was going to have, a golf section and sort of a country club type area and boating and sort of almost like a Western type area that would have townhouses. And they built 100 or plus townhomes near the Lake Buena Vista Village. The whole idea of it being a place for these local residents to shop without having to go off property. And if you're saying, well, Lou, where are these mysterious townhomes? They're still there at a place called Saratoga Springs. That's where these villas and the vacation villas and the fairway villas and the treehouse villas all were being built.
Yeah, and it was going to be this great community. You're going to have access to golf, access to shopping, water sports, your tennis. It's going to be a true community that this is where you live, this is where you work, this is where you played, all in one place. But they are still there, and it became part of the Disney Institute. We had the Disney Institute for those people who were coming for kind of an educational vacation, and so so there's still pieces of it there. It just never became a place where you could actually live and work and breathe.
And you lead me to something else that was on my list that, like you, I never got to see, and I think I think the idea was sound. I think the execution and maybe the marketing might not have been on point, and that was the Disney Institute itself. It was the idea that while you were going to visit Walt Disney World, whether you're staying at the villas or not, you can actually go to these Institute buildings, and there were maybe 30 or so different programs that you could take part in to get education on anything from animation to cooking to gardening, photography. I remember television. There was a television production where you can sort of do like news stuff or I remember something you could like pretend to do like a Disney Institute TV channel show. There was stuff for kids, I think from like 5 to 7 years old and up. There was architecture. I think there was like storytelling and puppeteering and painting. Yeah. I mean, it really ran the gamut. And unfortunately, I never got a chance to see it. I wanted Disney to teach me how to draw. I wanted them to teach me about storytelling. I wanted them to teach me about production, right? Video production, which, remember, this is, you're talking about what the early 80s, or maybe early 90s. Early
90s, yeah.
Yeah, so, we couldn't just pop out our phone or our GoPro and create a TV show. So it was so attractive to me. And I think, unfortunately, the idea like, oh, come to Walt Disney World and learn while you're on vacation might not have played well. But I think if this was brought back and marketed correctly, I think this would kill.
I think you're absolutely right. I think part of what its death knell was that there were too many ideas. There were too many pieces to do. I think with something like this, it was you need to start small in scope and then build out the other options, not the other way around. And I think that may have been part of that. But you know, how many people go to Disney World for a conference now? They're still doing the work and the play piece now. That this is a part of who we are, and this is a part of who we are as a culture that I absolutely think it would have a place. And I think you and I would be the first two to sign up for a multitude of the classes. You know, I think I would love to do – I know they did the gardening, and they would show you how they did the topiaries, and they would let you create your own that you would end up taking home with you. And you know, there was always something tangible that you would take away with that, you know, besides just a new skill, something that reminded you and something that you could show this is work that I created.
And look, the Disney Institute lives on in a very different form, right, where they work with businesses and brands and corporations and individuals. I mean, they have, you know, professional development courses. They bring companies come in and pay to go and have business solution created, you know, specifically for them, whether it's about, you know, leadership or engaging employees or just excellence in business. Where else would you want to learn other from the people who are the best at what they do? But I would love something that would be accessible to the everyday guest. I mean, look at how popular the add-on experiences are, the backstage tours, even things like the drawing classes. I mean, imagine having an animation program where you can go for a day and learn from a Pixar or a hand-drawn animator about computer animation or animation production in sort of a workshop type environment that's longer than just, you know, a 20-minute attraction.
Absolutely, and you could go someplace where you learn about how do they put these attractions together. You know, for some, it would be how do they put the story together, the attraction. Like, where does that idea start? Where is the research point for that? When do you decide if it's an animatronic, if it's a video, is it a stage show? You know, how is all that done? And I think there are places for that, for those kinds of lessons to still be new, and they're still new for guests who haven't had that experience or who don't have those particular skills to go in and see these things.
I mean, look, they do that already. I mean, they're still doing it just under a different moniker, right? When you go to the Flower and Garden Festival, you have clinics on, on gardening and designing your winter garden or your urban garden. During Food and Wine Festival, you learn about culinary techniques and wine and wine appreciation and different cooking demonstrations. So there is obviously an interest for it, but to be able to package it in something that is there all the time that you could sign up for. And think about, we talk about the low barrier entry point. Mom and the kids love Disney. Maybe dad's not into it. Yeah, but what if you went there and said, Dad, when we go, I got you this cool thing. It's a photography program. It's a program about, business, using customer service in your business. Or maybe you want to learn how to, I don't know, the rock climbing or golf or animation.
Right. They have the animal studies programs that happen over at Animal Kingdom that you could go and you could, be on hand, get a little bit of a closer eye view of what's happening there when they're feeding the animals, how they set up those things. The ideas are numerous that you truly could capture somebody who maybe is that tertiary guest who isn't as interested in, say, going on the attractions or the rides as the rest of their family.
And think about your kids, right? And Disney has an amazing youth education series program, which I promise I will cover on the show in depth at one point. But imagine taking your kids and say that, they start programs as young as 7 years old, where you could teach them about, let's say you have a kid who loves the theatrics and loves the performance and say, okay, we're going to teach you how to learn to sing and dance and act from Disney, right? From the performers who you see out there on the parades and who are out there on stage. Maybe you want to learn about creating music, about writing music or music appreciation. Maybe you want to learn about what this show, right? We talk about the elements of what good show are. Puppetry, Imagineering, whatever it might be. Especially if you come and you're like, oh man, I got to take my kid out of school. You do something like that, and the experience that they're going to have, and more importantly, the experience that they're going to bring back. I think sometimes the best education we can give our children is not necessarily, and understand what I mean by this, it doesn't always have to be confined to the four corners of a classroom.
No, some of the greatest lessons you learn are outside of the classroom. It's one of those things when, as an educator, I was always looking for the teachable moments. They were the things that weren't on the lesson plans. They were the questions that children naturally had. And that's what you build in here. Where are those interests that they're going to eat up everything you say? And you can make it scalable. Like we're talking about with the child who's in the drama. Okay, we're going to teach you how to sing and how to do some of these acting pieces. And as they get a little bit older into the 10s, 11s, 12s, now we're looking at costuming and set design and how do you set up lighting and things that they have built up skills as they come back time and again to do, or they come back at a different age.
Well, think about this. Think about your kid that says, oh, man, when I grow up, I want to be a veterinarian. Yep. What if you could bring them to Animal Kingdom, right? And they can work with the staff at, Conservation Station, going behind the scenes into those rooms where they are working on animals, or have a specific program for them. What if you can take them and have an artist show them how to draw, right? What if you can have some of these different people that they see in areas that they want to maybe have interest in and really learn from the people directly at Disney?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that's the thing. You're getting them at an intersection of a place they love and a thing they love, and it's going to mean more to them than even if they had found the book on their own, or they had found the video, or they had found the lesson on their own.
Right. So how many kids go, oh man, I want to do this. I want to be an Imagineer. I want to make one of these things. What if you had a program where an Imagineer could take a small group of students and build their, conceptualize their own attraction, or build a theme park, understand what the elements of good show are, say, next thing you know, you might have a kid that says, hey, you know what? I don't want to be an Imagineer. I want to be an engineer, right? I want to be a mechanical engineer. This is the road that I want to go down. And what you might be able to introduce kids and potentially adults to as well.
Right. I was just thinking when you talk about the Imagineering, where do I sign up for that? Right. So, and I know we have plenty of friends who would be right there in line with us. But you think about all the avenues you could expose them to. That would be so fantastic. The possibilities are limitless.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's and I wonder if something like that would potentially come back, maybe not as a specific destination that you have to go to at a Disney Institute classroom, but things that would take place, not necessarily in a group. Maybe you can bring a youth group to go. Maybe it's like, hey, I'm with my kids. These are some of the programs. These are the animation. These are the culinary. These are the, TV, photography, programs that might be available to adult, and maybe even something adults and kids can do together.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Because then, we still have to think about, okay, it's this age bracket, it's this age bracket, it's this age bracket. Well, how do you bring the whole family together? And that would be another key way to get everyone involved.
I agree. All right, so sorry for the very tangential.
We got really excited there.
I was I'm surprised at how excited I got this idea of the educational. And look, this is something I think we both do this, right? I mean, I speak to students at grammar and middle and high and university level students about sort of bringing Disney into the classroom. So bringing the classroom to Disney, to the Disney vacation, is something that I've always had a great deal of interest in. But what about anything else? Anything else outside the parks or in the downtown Disney /Village/Springs area?
There's a bunch of little pieces here and there, and then I start thinking of where I grew up as a child in Fort Wilderness. I did consider, going, Pop's Place at River Country, because that would mean we'd have to have river. But if there's one thing, and there are things like Marshmallow Marsh and Breakfast with Melvin the Moose, but it's the lawnmower tree, and it just seems like such a little thing. It seems like such a little thing, but the lawnmower tree at Fort Wilderness, which was the tree down in the settlement area you could see the base of an old push lawnmower coming out of it, and at one point you could see a little bit of the handle where the handlebar would come out, and there was a sign next to it, and it was the lawnmower tree, and talked about Billy Bowlegs had left his lawnmower and slept for too long, and it had basically become part of the tree, and over the years the tree started to overgrow it. They had to cut it to stop the growth. Began to rot. They had to take the whole thing out, and I have searched high and low for where that sign and where those pieces of that lawnmower went, probably in a dumpster somewhere.
Yeah.
But that is such a key piece. I can remember going there and, my dad and I getting in a golf cart and driving over just so I could see the lawnmower tree when we were camping. I would love to have that back, or I would love to know where those pieces are to hold on to today.
I'm not surprised that was on there, but I thought you were going to go with the Fort Wilderness Railway, or should I say the Frailway?
I had it. To me that was like, that's an attraction. I can't really. I thought that, but obviously, if I could bring the railroad back, the railroad's coming too.
Yeah. So when I went to Village Marketplace, downtown Disney, I wanted to say Pleasure Island, but I actually don't want to bring that back. And what I mean by that is Pleasure Island just it suffered from never being able to figure out what it wanted to be. It had no identity. Mm-hmm. It didn't know, was it a place for families to go? Was it a place for young adults to go and drink and party? Was it a place for locals? And it sort of was always trying to evolve and find out what it wanted to be, and sometimes it was a little it was a little, I don't want to say rowdier, but it was definitely not a place you were probably bringing your kids. You weren't going to hang out there with your kids, and then all of a sudden you were bringing your kids, and it made some of the clubs have a weird feel and vibe to it. Yeah. That being said, I would love to bring back the Comedy Warehouse, and certainly it goes without saying the Adventures Club in some form of fashion, which I do believe in my heart of hearts it is going to come back in some way. Society of Explorers and Adventurers, oh, how we love you so. However, I would bring back Jessica's of Hollywood, not for the merchandise, but just for the sign.
Just for the sign. You don't get enough of it at Castaway Cay?
I love me some Jessica Rabbit.
Yeah, you and me both. And but I think you're right. I think Pleasure Island, I had it on I was looking at it too, and I was like, would I bring that back? And I started seeing now what we have with the landing and with the Adventures Club. I would love to have the Adventures Club and Comedy Warehouse come back, and we get bits and pieces of them everywhere. The Comedy Warehouse does a special at Christmas and at the studios, or with the Adventurers Club, right? We have the SEA, and we see pieces of it in the Grotto. We see part of it at Jock Lindsay's Hangar Bar.
You see it in Hong Kong. I mean, it's
right. It goes on and on. Like so it's still there. Would I love to see it come back in one cohesive piece? Absolutely. But I think you're right. Pleasure Island never quite knew what it was or what it wanted to be. And I think now there is an identity forming around these different areas, whether it's the landing, whether it's, the marketplace, all these different town center of Disney Springs. So I'm interested to see how that plays out and if it does have its identity now.
And I will say, I think, dare I say, I predict, and I thought about this when I went to Hong Kong, and I started to try and tie pieces together. I'm like, wow, the Society of Explorers and Adventurers has gone beyond the boundaries of simply the confines of the Walt Disney World theme park. Now we're seeing it at the resorts. Now we're seeing it overseas. I think we are just seeing the very tip of a much grander scale of the Society of Explorers and Adventurers that very much will exist outside the four corners of the Disney theme parks.
I think you're absolutely right. I think right now there are, I want to say, pieces of bait out there to see how much we're willing to bite on, how much we're willing to buy into this story. And I think you're right. I think there's going to be much, much more that comes from that. And there are going to be pieces all over the world that tie into it before it's all said and done.
And I don't think that those pieces are necessarily going to be restricted to Disney theme parks around the world.
Nope. I would absolutely agree with you.
I'm dropping the mic and walking off stage. However, before I drop the mic and walk off stage, quickly in the downtown Disney Resort area, I would still love to see. I want it to be 8 tracks. It could be Videopolis. It could be Cage. But man, a retro 70s and 80s club back once again would be a neat thing. I think that the retro movement, and it's really scary that the 80s is considered like so old now as opposed to when I was a kid. It was like, oh, the 50s or ages ago. Yeah. And whether it be a store like Yesteryears that was in downtown Disney, or Disneyana Collectibles that used to be on Main Street, a shop that would sell vintage, authenticated Disney collectibles. Sid Coenga, we miss you so.
Yep.
I would love to see something like that, because that was one of the things that was neat to see, whether it was in Pleasure Island or whether it was on Main Street where the exposition hall is now, when they had the Disneyana shop there.
Yeah.
Seeing actual collectibles that are somehow sourced by Disney and authenticated by Disney, that you can get there, and maybe the merchandise rotates and changes all the time, would be really neat to see.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, those are those pieces that those are always the pieces I go in and go, oh, I'd love to have that. Oh, I'm never going to have that much money in my entire life. but there were always those pieces that you could afford. That were pieces of things that you could love and take home and have a story about. This piece that you could go home and say, yes, this is from such and such. And I agree. I think there's still a place for that in the hearts of many, many Disney enthusiasts.
So as we start to wrap up, is there anything else on your list or around the resort?
There's one. I've been waiting for it to come from you, because I think
we're sort of holding. This is sort of the ace in the hole.
Would it be the Fiesta Fun Center?
It would not. But I love you.
You missed the Fiesta.
I love you so much for saying that.
Oh yeah, 24-hour snack bar, movie theater, arcade.
You had me at snack bar. So.
a shooting gallery, the full length of a wall on the bottom floor of the Contemporary. What is not to love?
How did I leave it off my list? I spent so many hours and quarters down there. So it's where the wave is now, if you're trying to imagine. I mean, but it really is right. It really sort of took over almost that entire first floor area back there. And gosh, I mean, it was a super game room arcade on steroids. And by steroids, I mean steroids that were decorated in oranges and browns and yellows.
Right. It was that 1970s. They had it on the first floor, and then they had it at the top of the World Lounge. It was that same brown, orange, yellow color combination, but it was every kid's absolute daydream. Like we would just go, and my parents would turn us loose, and they wouldn't see us for hours, and we didn't care because we were having the time of our lives.
Oh my gosh, how did I forget that? And yeah, I mean, look, now arcades are they're small with 5 to 10 games in amount at the resorts, but I'd love to see a game center like that. Oh my gosh, come back! And so you mentioned something else that was sort of a codicil to my list. As long as we're at the Contemporary and you're going upstairs, remember the Top of the World Supper Club, where it was a place that you would. It was a destination for dinner. It was a place to go and get dressed up. And yes, maybe the kids were downstairs playing, but you went there not just for a meal, but for entertainment as well. I mean, and look, when you can book Phyllis Diller and Carol Lawrence, I mean, you're talking, this is major, and kids, you don't know who any of those people are, but they were like A-list celebrities back in 1977.
Yeah, and they had Broadway at the top, and there was the dinner show, and you had to dress up for dinner, and it was one of the very few places, one of the first places at Disney World where you had to do that, and it was the cool place to hang out. They had drinks that were named, Monorail Purple, Monorail Red, so you got to find your favorite monorail in cocktail form.
And I think the Velvet Fog I think Mel Torme might have actually been up there.
I believe
at one point. And people are Googling right now, Mel Torme, the Velvet Fog. But yeah, I mean, that's sort of what it was. And I don't know, this is such I'll go with me here. But when I think about the Top of the World Supper Club, I think about, if you've ever seen the movie The Towering Inferno, everybody up all dressed up, having a nice dinner and dancing at the top with these beautiful views, minus the Towering Inferno itself. That's sort of what I think about when I thought of the Top of the World Supper Club, because it had those colors, and I could sort of almost imagine people in their giant lapelled suits from the late 70s, early 80s.
Now everyone's checking Netflix to see if they can watch The Towering Inferno to see what you're talking about.
Towering Inferno was awesome. It was in Sense-Around.
Yes.
It was in Sense-Around. Right. It had Steve McQueen and Paul Newman.
Steve McQueen, yeah. It was one of Steve McQueen's last movies, I believe.
And one of OJ's firsts.
But But we digress.
Yes. So, and the last thing, and dude, this is what I thought you were going to go with. I thought you were going to close out with your home run, baby, and say, Lou, man, there was nothing at Walt Disney World like Discovery Island / Treasure Island / Blackbeard
it was
Island.
the river country attraction, Fort Wilderness Railroad piece. I'd bring that whole place back. I'd bring Bay Lake back to life bigger and better than ever. But to me, I was like, that's an attraction. I can't bring it back and without, breaking that cardinal rule. But yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and I know for a fact, I think, gosh, back on like show number 94, we did a DSI about Discovery Island. I think it was probably like a Wayback Machine we did, because it was an island that you had to take a boat to, and it had, all kinds of live animals on there, and bird shows and monkey colonies, and I remember the vultures. I can't remember all the things, but I remember the giant aviary.
I was gonna say there were Galapagos tortoise at one point. And it started life as Treasure Island, and it truly was just birds for the first couple of years. They would take sick animals. In fact, I had my cousin, my aunt, and my uncle had a bird that actually ended up living at Treasure Island or on Discovery Island, because they would take injured animals that could no longer be left in the wild. So yeah, absolutely, I would bring it back in a heartbeat.
Yeah, we've talked, if you go back to show 94, 98, whatever it is, you'll hear us talk about what it was and why it closed, and how you can still don't get too close, but you can still get close to it and see it from Fort Wilderness or Wilderness Lodge, and then some rumors about what that island was going to be. And who knows, man, still might be. There was talks about that becoming a very sort of exclusive honeymoon type resort. Yeah. Now that you see what they're doing with the overwater bungalows at places like the Polynesian, who knows? Maybe there is still hope for you, Discovery Island. But Ryan P. Wilson, we love taking our trips down memory lane. I think sometimes we miss more things than not, but it is always a lot of fun. And I want you, the listener, to tell me, what do you wish would return? What extinct thing, not an attraction, do you wish would return to Walt Disney World as it was the day it came there, or maybe the day that it left? There's a lot of different ways you could let me know. I want to hear it, man. I want to hear the passion in your voice. So call the voicemail at 407-900-9391. That's 407-900-WDW1, and say, Lou and Ryan, good Gandhi boys, how did you forget about blank? And tell me your story, right? Get choked up, man. Get passionate. I want to hear. You can also tweet me at Lou Mongello. You can also go to WDWradio.com, click on this week's podcast, and leave a comment there in the show notes. I and Ryan will keep an eye on that and respond to you there as well. You can also let me know, Facebook.com/Lou Mongello, and tweet Ryan too. Ryan, where can they find you on all of the socials?
I am at Maine ST Gazette on Twitter, on Instagram, Main Street Gazette on Facebook. You can find me at any of these places.
Awesome. And dude, clearly there are more Wayback Machines and DSI segments that we have to do. And I look forward to not just continuing to explore the past, but what the future might hold together at Walt Disney World.
Can't wait.
I can't believe there was so little food on that list.
I started looking, I was like, we didn't mention Odyssey, we didn't mention the farmer's market, we didn't mention, I was like, we screwed up something.
we did this all, start all over again. We did the whole thing wrong. There's not enough food on my list. You actually
we talked about the Haley, I'm like, yeah, we'll get back to that, and then I totally bypassed farmer's market.
You could have listened. You actually could have listened to this show hungry and been okay.
I don't know, we still mentioned enough. We got a couple pieces in there.
It's time for our Walt Disney World Trivia Question of the Week, where I invite you to test your knowledge of Walt Disney World history, or see how well you pay attention, not just in the details that you see, but sometimes in the details that you hear. If you think you know the answer, you can enter via email for your chance to win a Disney Prize package. Before we get to this week's question, let's go back, review last week's, and select our winner. So last week's question was very straight to the point and simple, and was to tell me where in Walt Disney World can you find the hole in the wall? Congratulations and thanks to all of you who entered and got this one correct and knew that the hole in the wall can be found at Raglan Road, the Irish pub and restaurant in Disney Springs. And the hole in the wall is actually one of the 2 outdoor bars and seating areas they have. This one is located between the restaurant and Cooks of Dublin, which is their quick service location. So I took all the correct entries, randomly selected one, and again, you were playing for the 102 Ways to Save Money for and at Walt Disney World book, my audio tours of the Magic Kingdom, the WDW Radio Magic Band cover, and a Hong Kong Disneyland map, and a Hong Kong Disneyland mystery prize from the souvenirs I brought home. And last week's winner, randomly selected, is Matthew Martin. So Matthew, congratulations. Please send me an email with your address and I'll get your package out to you right away. If you played last week and didn't win, that's okay, because here's your next chance to enter in this week's Walt Disney World Trivia Challenge. So we are talking about extinct Walt Disney World, and we didn't talk about any attractions really this week. So your question this week is, of course, about an extinct attraction. So tell me, what extinct Walt Disney World attraction welcomed you aboard Bravo 229er? You have until Sunday, April 10th at 11:59 p.m. to email your answer to contest@wdwradio.com. Again, you're playing for my 102 Ways to Save Money for and at Walt Disney World book, all 7 of my virtual audio walking tours of the Magic Kingdom, a WDW Radio Magic Band cover, and I'll throw in one more Hong Kong Disneyland map. So good luck and have fun. That's going to do it for this week's show. Thank you so much for taking the time to tune in this and every week. I want to quickly thank some new members of the WDW Radio Nation and family, including the McNamara family, Katie and her parents, Tim Martin and John J. Smith. If you want to help the show and get cool rewards every month that are exclusive to the nation, you can visit wdwradio.com/support. Find out how you can get monthly scavenger hunts, access to our private Facebook group, personalized Magic Band covers, monthly care packages from Walt Disney World, t-shirts, and lots more. Again, visit wdwradio.com/support. Please also join me every Wednesday night at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, live on Facebook, as I do a live video broadcast and chat. You can ask me anything, play games. Sometimes I broadcast from the parks. Again, follow me over on Facebook at facebook.com/Lou Mongello. Turn on notifications, or if you're following me on Twitter at Lou Mongello, you can get notified there. I'm also at Lou Mongello on Instagram and Pinterest and all the other social. And of course, as much as I love connecting with you online, nothing beats a handshake and a hug. So please visit the events page either over on my Facebook page or at wdwradio.com. Find about upcoming meets of the month in Walt Disney World. Our next one is going to be Saturday, April 16th. That is during the Star Wars Dark Side Half Marathon Weekend. That's from 2 to 4 p.m. at the American Adventure outdoor seating area by the Liberty Inn in Epcot. We have other upcoming events in Walt Disney World and on the road. I'll be in Chicago in July. Saturday, June 4th, I'll be speaking at the EdCamp Magic Conference in Orlando. And in November is our e-ticket adventure on the Magic from New York and down to Puerto Rico. I'll have other events, not just in Walt Disney World, coming up that I'm really excited to reveal and announce, but other ones on the road as I travel to speak at conferences and to schools and businesses. And if maybe I can come and either help work with you to help you pursue your passion or to come speak at your school or to your business or to your conference, visit LouMongello.com. Quick thanks, as always, to MouseFan Travel, my official and recommended travel provider. Whether you're coming to a Disney destination or any place around the world, Becky and her team of agents can help you, all at no cost to you. Visit them over at mousefantravel.com and go to celebrationspress.com to get a little bit of Disney magic delivered right to your door or your digital device. And as always, my friends, and you are my friends, whether we have met yet or not, all I ask is that if you like the show, please help spread the word. Let others know about it. Tweet out links to this week's episode, or better yet, link them up over on Facebook and share them with your friends there. Better yet, if you can take just 30 seconds and go to iTunes, please rate and review the show there. It's so very helpful, so important, and thanks to you, we have more than 1,100 5-star reviews. You helped us reach number 2 overall on iTunes. I want to thank some recent reviewers like Lisa Reck, Arch Pez, Fitzer 1201, and Maureen's 17, who said, over the past year, I've gone back and listened to nearly every single show, and I have to say it's the best. She loves the incredible positivity and fun and entertaining that WDW Radio brings, and it truly helps to brighten up her morning commute. Maureen, Fitzer, Archpez, Lisa, you who's listening, thank you so much for taking the time and sharing it with me. I really do appreciate it. Again, you can visit wdwradio.com/iTunes or visit iTunes and search for the show. Rate and review it there. And finally, and most importantly, I, as always, want to thank you so much for taking the time and sharing it with me and spending it with me and emailing me and coming to events and sharing with me over on Facebook and Twitter. I appreciate the love and the support and the friendship so much. And it is because of you that I do this show and get to do what I do every day. And for that, I am incredibly grateful. And whatever it is that you have been thinking about and meaning to do, or maybe even just say to somebody, go do it, right? What are you waiting for? Don't wait any longer, right? Maybe I didn't mean to make it this way, but as they used to say in the Carousel of Progress, now is the time, now is the best time to get out there and go do it. And I hope that you have not just an amazing day, an amazing week, but an amazing year and lifetime ahead. And thank you again so very much. So until next time, see ya.
Hi, Lou. This is Carolyn Norton from New Jersey. Just want to say hi and thank you for all that you do. I thoroughly enjoy all your podcasts. I love tuning into The Box now on Facebook, which is great for me. And I just love your inspirational comments and your overall theme park information. It makes getting by the day-to-day life a lot easier. And boy, do you make me hungry a lot. I did check out the chicken and waffles when I went out to Disney back in September, and they were fantastic. So I have new items to put on my list for the next time I go. I listened to your latest podcast, and my favorite dragon is Elliot from Pete's Dragon. And I really enjoyed your review of Hong Kong Disney. Really interesting, and I hope I can get there soon. So thank you so much, Lou, and keep doing what you're doing. Thanks.
You got a friend in me. Yeah.
Bringing home tractors, now you're done. All your spinning's all been spun. Y'all come back now, we'll have more fun at Junkyard Jim.